There we are. I'm hitting buttons
Yay.
now. So we'll see. Now it says it's going to take a few seconds. Okay, according to LinkedIn, we exist in a digital space, not just in face to face, which is, by the way, subject of our conversation today. I don't know if you know what's going on here, but this is a little tete a tete, a fake TED, a dueling TED talk, if you will, if you like using lots of T words. Apparently, I'm James Ellis. I do this little thing about every week, roughly, and we're definitely very rough this week. We were supposed to do this Tuesday, and if you tuned in and you were disappointed, God, that makes me feel so nice and sad at the same time. I'm so thrilled that you missed us, but we had some technical difficulties and we had to rebook. And here it's Friday, so what better day to hang out and talk about real world stuff with the one and only Anna Morgan than on a Friday morning. This is a great way to get
Yes.
things started. So if you don't know Anna, and I don't understand what you're doing, if you don't, Anna is career BFF. She runs a little event called Evolve. I hear rumors that there might be multiple events coming where this is a thing. This isn't just, it wasn't
Yeah.
just a one-off. Well, I'm sure that'll come up.
Yeah.
So the process for what you're about to see is I wanted to invite lots of smart people who are not connected with big old agencies who can afford to spend lots of money on tents and booths at big events, which, hey, good for them. They can do that. That is their superpower of having lots of money and resources. They get to do that.
Yep.
And people who are not in-house, because in-house people get invited to speak at those events. And here we are, a lot of independents, the
Yes.
specialists, the killers, the scalpels, not the Swiss Army knives. We do one or two things really, really, really well, but at the
Yes.
same time, we can sometimes get overlooked. So if you haven't seen them before, we've already had Brian Fink, we've already had Rocky Howard, we've already had we had Rhoda. That was great. So today we have Anna Morgan. So I'm not gonna do much more talking. I'm gonna let Anna take the show on the road and the path that we have here, and let her
Awesome.
rock and roll. And I'll come back when she's done, and we'll talk a bit more. So, Anna, thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for wasting your time with us, and take it away.
Awesome. James, thanks for having me. I love this concept, love this idea, and obviously love to go on a little rant. So today I'm going to talk about really some confessions of a recruiter that is now turned event builder. So I grew up in Atlanta and I'm the oldest of five kids. And yes, all of our names start with A: Anna, Andrew, Amanda, April, and Addison. So my mom and my grandmother were always entertaining: epic Fourth of July parties, baby showers, christenings, birthdays, epic New Year's Eve parties. So I grew up like surrounded by that rhythm of connection, like watching my mom flip through the magazines, come up with the recipes. All the kids would help out, like, making the different recipes. My grandmother was also involved. And, if anyone grew up in the 90s like I did, Martha Stewart was epic. So where, people my age were probably watching cartoons, I was watching Martha Stewart. Okay. So today I like to joke that I bring a little of that 90s Martha Stewart energy into the HR and TA world. Really, that's just equal parts like creativity, chaos, and mostly importantly, connection. So we all have like pretty much the DNA in my family was that we all had this gift of being creative and entertaining. And the focus of those kind of family gatherings was simple. We made people feel welcome, seen, and oftentimes very special. So I didn't even know it then, but that spark and that sense of belonging would eventually be my life's work. So I started in recruiting in 2000, which was the same year I got married. And this is where I fell in love with recruiting. It was the thrill of helping people find the right job, the chase of getting new clients, the joy of watching candidates' confidence bloom again. And that's where I knew, like, this wasn't just a job. This was really something that I loved because it didn't feel like work. So I started, in that agency world, Quest Financial. I was always a great cold caller, relationship builder, great outreach, but I always wanted something more. And from there, I started creating lunch and learns where I would provide HR credits and SHRM credits at luncheons for my HR leaders and prospects. So creating that space for learning, connection, and most importantly, trust, because trust is the tipping point to really all opportunity in my mind. So then I worked for Vaco in Tampa, where I ran workshops, training sessions, and built partnerships that truly lasted many, many years. Then I came to Atlanta. I did accounting and finance recruiting. I mentored junior recruiters, and I was the one that was always raising my hand to head up the holiday committee, and really just do creative things within the office. Later, I transitioned into internal TA with a big Fortune 500 company where I was often tapped for, internal meetings that were new initiatives. And I was also the one who was also planning the Halloween contest and holiday events. Because for me at the time, like, events were not just another way to recruit, it was another way to build trust and to build community. So I see these types of events as faster trust builders than any sales pitch could potentially offer. So I can look back and pretty much say that I wasn't just hiring, I wasn't just prospecting, but I was hosting. And so now you fast forward to 2020 and Connection moved online. And my mission pretty much stayed the same. I endured a layoff like many people. I launched the job search hotline where I helped job seekers find clarity. Then I did a year and a half, 2 years of the job search angels on Clubhouse, where it was a gathering for job seekers and coaches that were providing value to the community. And then when LinkedIn rolled out audio events, I hosted Ask a Recruiter for almost 2 years, where we served approximately 15,000 job seekers over that time. And every project, whether it was the hotline, the angels, the audio events, I see those as dots. And that's how Evolve connected all of those dots. And I realize now that it wasn't just a pivot, it was an intentional kind of calling. And having that radical awareness of, what feels igniting and that is passion, this was an invitation to be like, yes, this is what I need to do. The most important thing is that we're living through what the World Health Organization calls a global loneliness epidemic. So they say 1 in 6 people worldwide are affected, and that's more than 87,000 excess deaths each year linked to isolation. So at the same time, something else was happening. In-person events are surging back. The research that I found is that 60% of business events are now back in person. 57% of organizers have seen higher attendance this year. Yay. 86% plan to host more in person events in 2026. So, more than 80% of professionals, especially in people leadership, HR talent, say that they face experiences around loneliness and that they find in person events still the most impactful way to build community connection and long lasting relationships, which is why I built Evolve, because people are craving something real again. They want energy, laughter, connection, and a place to belong. So, I see events that are a place to build something different. I mean, we can rent a ballroom and post on LinkedIn, but what I'm trying to focus on is intention, because I see community happens when people see themselves in your story. So when they feel invited and not instructed. So that's what happened last year with Evolve. It's not a lecture hall, but it's like part leadership, part friendship, and part therapy, because people don't remember what I said on stage. They remember how they felt, whether it's virtual or in person. I've also believe that big doesn't always mean better. We don't need another mega expo where you walk 6 miles and leave feeling exhausted. It's all about like intentional collisions, smaller rooms, conversations that really can go deeper. So I tried to build Evolve like a dinner party. I did assigned seating, shared meals, um, you know, building places where real deep human connection can happen. So, across the industry from RecFest to LinkedIn Talent Connect and several of the other great events, we're starting to see more attendance and more reconnection. So, what I think people are realizing is that while we have the most advanced technology, if we're not focusing on that in person connection, the technology may not help us advance as much as we need to. So I see it as a way to really foster the magic. And it's not about your head count. I feel it's like more heart count. The magic isn't the branding. It wasn't the logistics. It wasn't the buzz. last year, it was the way that people stepped up and were like, I want to share it. I want to be involved. That's when I knew that when you build something with heart, even though it's scary, the community is what carried it forward. And it wasn't my marketing. It was basically, the fact that I was building in public. So building from scratch is not glamorous. It is messy, it's emotional, it's exhilarating. I've rewritten sponsorship decks at midnight. I've begged for like AV miracles. I've cried over the agendas. Um, but I found every bit of chaos was worth it because in the middle of all that mess, I discovered something sacred, the kind of like igniting flow that I got when I was doing work that was just so heart centered really set me on fire and reminded me that I'm alive and that this is why I'm here. Now, the ripple effect, they just keep coming. This inspired me to host a fringe event after Wreckfest at the zoo with several different partners. And that was just a great tipping point to showcase that partners can collaborate. There were new friendships, new ideas. And I just learned that when I create spaces where people feel seen, they stay. And then they also bring people. And that's how connection really compounds. So here's where I'll land. The future of HR talent and leadership isn't all about AI and technology. It's about togetherness and trust. So the event interest industry says it's going to grow from 736 billion in 21 to 2.5 trillion in 2035. That's incredible growth and it's a human need. That's how I see those numbers. Every event, every shared meal, every conversation, that starts with, man, I've been there too. That is what I hope for the future of work. If 2020 like broke our connection, my hope is that 2025 is the year that we completely rebuild. At Evolve, one room, one story, one conversation at a time. So I see connection as oxygen. It's not a, fancy luxury or anything like that. But now, as prioritizing my title as an event builder, I see us as, you know, dot connectors or architects of belonging in what has come to be such a disconnected community and world. So I'll stop there.
I don't know why you'd stop. Why would you
I can
stop? You
just
should
keep
keep rocking
going.
going. I mean, look, here's the thing. I want to point out a couple of things that I think are really interesting, and that is you didn't start Evolve with a big old, venture capital funded, here's a big check, go make a big event and get it started. You started with like, give us a scale, give us a scope here. What did
Yeah,
you
I
really
mean,
start this thing with?
I, in true ADHD fashion, it was a little impulsive. And you know how you get those memories that come up? It was just 2 days ago, I made a post on Facebook a year ago that said, hey, if anybody has referrals for an event space, I'm looking to host an event that happens to be on my 50th birthday. So I think there was also something tied to turning 50 and being kind of in this new season of my career and life. And I started with the space. And as soon as I got the space, then I just took it from there. And I really leveraged the community that I had built. I interviewed Jamie Leonard from Wreckfest, and he said his first event, he drug his friends, all 90 of them, to his first event. And I kind of felt like I was the same. I really called in every relationship. And, the other signal that I was on the right track was the yeses, from the speakers to the sponsors to, Foster Williams and team reaching out, wanting to promote it, to the Shark wanting to have me on his show, to Brandon Jeffs reaching out and saying, hey, what are you doing? How can I support you? And all of that has continued to build momentum and is still bringing in that same kind of energy. And that to me is just a signal of like, let's go. We need more of this. And it's not competing with other events, it's allowing for more people to find that connection, which ultimately solves that massive mental health issue that the World Health Organization mentioned.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of
So,
pent up demand. And honestly, COVID certainly you can put a lot of the blame there. But I think in general, the idea of the amount of digital we face, the number of screens we're all looking at all the time, that the sense of, is the time being spent wisely? Is this time being spent in a way that is fulfilling, that is valuable, that is useful?
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to a podcast where it's like everybody is out walking around, but they're all listening to podcasts or listening to audiobooks because they don't want to waste that time. The truth is, being in the presence of other people, furthering their journey,
Mm-hmm.
furthers your journey, and that supports a larger idea. And that's enough of a goal.
Yeah.
Couple of things I want to point out because I'm an employer brander and I'm going to nerd out about employer brand type stuff.
Yeah.
First off, there's amazing parallels between employer brand and event management because, as you
100%.
said, if you start by just kind of holding your hand up and saying, does anybody have space?
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing who shows up and then leveraging that and then leveraging people who show up for that and the people who say, I want to volunteer for that. And people say, I'd like to kind of sponsor a little thing here. And you're like,
Right.
and then it becomes this flywheel. And the employer brand is very much the same thing. It's the mistake to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, we're going to go away for like 8 months and we're going to strategize and perfectly craft this amazing blueprint of a employer brand launch. And we're going to come back and ta-da, and three minutes later, everybody forgot. But if you
Yeah.
start small, if you start to build momentum, if you start to bring in people, when I was a Groupon, we had no money, we had no resources whatsoever. And
Mm-hmm.
people who would do me little favors, I would leave them stickers with, a printed letter that was like, thank you for joining the super secret employer brand squad. Don't tell anyone you're part of this, but you
Right.
are now been drafted and you have a code name. And I would sign it X, whatever. And they would just go, what is this? And that sense of like, what is this?
But it's
Kept that
belonging.
flywheel moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it kept that flywheel moving. And it wasn't until a little bit later you go, oh, these other people are in this quote unquote secrets, and I didn't do anything with it, but they felt that moment. They felt that emotional connection. The other thing I want to say is that, go ahead. You're going to say something.
No, you go. I'll wait.
Okay. Okay. Hey, this is still your time. We can do whatever we want. There are no rules because this is my show and that's how I rock it.
I like it.
The other thing is that I want to point out to a lot of people driving employer branding who think this might be interesting, but what do I do? I want you to take a beat and look around because the truth is there's a really good chance that you've got a conference room that no one uses Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or you've got a space, it's a workspace somewhere that no one's using on a Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Why not host coffee?
Yeah.
For whoever wants to, you can be just for employer branders, you can be just for recruiters, and that's all well and good. But if you're thinking about in terms of employer branding, why not bring 3 people from the company who are experts and just say, we will talk about whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just an open forum. You don't have to TED talk it. You don't have to have a stage. You don't have to have slides. You don't have to just say, look, this is a space for people who are interested in X, and we will talk about X, and you might meet other people who are interested in X. And that little bit, that investment of just coffee or donuts or bagels or whatever it is, that's all it takes, gets the ball rolling and people start to talk about you. People start to mention you. I did a thing where it's like I brought 5 other companies talking about data science and I got press because I brought 5 other companies and we talked about data science and our name was mentioned, but at the same time, so were these 4 or 5 other companies. And it's like, oh yeah, there's a data science event happening in this company. Like that cost me nothing.
Yeah.
And the truth is, if you can get a little guerrilla marketing, if you can get a little MacGyver about this shit, if you can kind of go duct tape and say, look, you don't have to have all the right answers and it doesn't have to be glossy. Look, unleash is unleash. And they've been doing it for a while. And there's a reason why it's all polished and glossy is because there's feeding a particular market and they've owned that market. They and Transform own that space. You are not here to be tiny Transform or tiny Unleash. Be the thing that is you. And I think if you embrace that, there's so many opportunities. Go.
Well, and that's the same thing about, building employer brand, right? I think a lot of teams think, oh my gosh, I have to have this perfectly curated strategy. And the feedback that is oftentimes reflected to me is just like, you're always building and you do it in a way that is, that messy, imperfect action. And I try to share like the wins and the lessons along the way as well. But also, just be willing to, again, you don't want to be spammy and put garbage out there, but there's something to be said about just, ripping that Band-Aid off and giving it a try and then calibrating from there. The other thing that I had to do was really just turn down the noise on all the other content and opinions and what these other groups are doing. And, really just trust in my intuition and creativity and market research that I've kind of accumulated over the last 2.5 years of attending events and saying, how can I work to solve, some of these challenges that I see in other spaces that are, unique and innovative, but also are containers for those deeper conversations.
Yep.
And I love the concept of bringing, a department in and just having them riff on what they do, what they the golden thread of success on their team. What does that look like? Some of their challenges, what are their tech initiatives coming? And then you can just take all of that, right? And with the help of AI tools to break out those topics. And then you have stories, right? And employer branding, and even building an event like Evolve is just about the story,
Mhm.
building something bigger than yourself, and then how you did it and the lessons learned.
Yeah. I don't want to take something, I don't want to peel that off for a second because I think it's really interesting when you talk about stories. Your story is not the same as their story, is not the same as their story, is not the same as their story. In a way, what you're doing is you're presenting this space
Hmm.
for people to create their own stories.
Right.
And they will go out, and because they created it is their story, and they are thrilled to tell their story, not your story, because they don't care about you. Nobody cares about you. Everybody cares about themselves. That's life. But if you give them space for them to kind of have a moment for themselves, they will tell
Hmm.
the world. They will
Right.
tell other people. They will engage it. Now, if they tell a story about how they did this amazing thing, does that mean you now have to do that 1,000 times? No, it means everybody told a different story because everybody had a different moment. And that's
Hmm.
fine because that's what live events are. They're not
Right.
scripted to the point of look, we've all been at events where here, I'm going to piss off a lot of people right now. As great as watching Taylor Swift clips on TikTok was, and the diving into the stage and the moments and the lights, we all know that was a scripted event. That was a play that was put on. It was
Hmm.
rehearsed. It was practiced. It was perfect. It was amazing to see it live, I would imagine. But at the same
Yeah.
time, we don't pretend it's. She stood up in a club and she says, "I'm working on this song. I'm
Hmm.
trying this out. Let's just see
Right.
what happens," which is
Right.
a whole different thing. And the
Hmm.
truth is, if you just say, "I'm trying this thing out, I'm working on this song, I'm trying it out," you aren't going to fill Soldier Field, but you are going to create connections in a way that Soldier Field isn't going to. It's a different
Right.
thing. And so don't
Yeah.
pretend that these big polished things are the best way to do things. My favorite
Hmm.
music events are in tiny clubs, and that was just like that. I know that's never, ever, 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 ever going to happen again. That was a singular moment that was purely, and I am one of 100 people who got to see that thing and went, "You wouldn't believe the thing that just happened."
Right.
That is its own story. That's its own value. I think
Hmm.
we look at these other events and we think, I can't do that. And yeah, you want to aim high, but at the same
Right.
time, you can do what you can do. And that's good.
Hmm.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That said, we all know people who have bitten off more than they can chew and are trying to put these tiny little mini unleashes together, and it doesn't quite
Yeah.
work. And everything's kind of like, hey, who's getting paid and who's getting what, and what is the process? And start small. Be willing to fail in front of people, and it's amazing what you can achieve.
Well, and then I mean, truly, I don't feel like I pulled off Evolve. Like I
You
feel like
don't?
it was. I mean, yeah, maybe I was the
Okay,
the
I wasn't
the
there,
cruise
but
ship director.
everybody I have talked to who has been to it would say otherwise. So I'm just going
Thank
to
you.
put that out there as a competing opinion.
But it was just the community of friends and peers and mentors who were the, sponsor intro people, the ones that made those introductions, the one that encouraged, the corporate team to buy group tickets for their organization. All of those things, would not have been possible had, I hadn't been able to build those friendships and community and trust. And that has
Hmm.
really all been through attending events, but also staying consistent and really nourishing those online relationships as well. So, I want to continue embodying this collaboration over competition kind of way of being in our space, because I think we get a little, guarded and, are playing defense a lot of the time. And in service of elevating the world of work, uh, my hunch is the solution is, the more we collaborate, the more we, pull back the curtain and stop gatekeeping and share our stories, what went well, what didn't. That's where people really learn. And then as far as learning is concerned, whether companies, throw LinkedIn Learning to their teams or, um, you know, give them journals and things to read, I think communities are not trusting the content that they're getting. And so there's a different level of trust that if they come to an event like Evolve or something similar, and they're at that round table and they're doing a mastermind type of activity, that kind of learning really stands out from what they've been given in more traditional containers.
Yeah, totally agree. I totally agree, and I think it's an your willingness to say it wasn't all me, it wasn't the Anna Morgan show, that you relied on all these other people who threw in, is so. I appreciate that, because I think a lot of people need to remember that there are people out there who want to be the first one to help, who want to be the
Yes.
first one to volunteer, and you just feel like you're the only one trying this idea, and you feel very much, one person on an island and hoping for the best. Like, the truth is, there are people who want to help, who want to be a part of something like this.
Hmm.
But until you speak up, until you raise
Yeah.
your hand and say, I got this thing, I'm turning 50, or what the hell, it's November, let's all get together in a
Right.
bar in Chicago, whatever that is, until you do it, nothing gets done.
Exactly.
So it takes tremendous courage, but the value in the return is so much greater because you were the first one to step up.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate that. And it's, oftentimes scary and messy and imperfect. But, when you're, again, radically honest with yourself and willing to fall and fail and pick yourself back up and learn from it in service of, what lights you up. And for me, it is providing these containers for our community so that, well, one, it's also because like I never really had access to that. So, that from a personal place is from a legacy standpoint too. I want to build these container that brings together the best of my TA leadership, full cycle recruiting, my coaching, and then this creative event piece that, now I can see all of these dots connecting and it's just like, bam, it slaps you in your face. And I bet it's the same with employer brand. It's like you have all those stories right in front of you. Then it's just, taking action and trusting that, you'll be able to calibrate as needed.
Yeah. All right,
So,
Anna, what a great place to land the plane here. Tell us where people can find you, and if they,
yes.
I don't know, maybe want to attend some sort of little event, maybe in Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe something coming up. I don't know.
Exactly. Evolve 26 is happening on Thursday, January 29th, here at the Marriott in the Marietta area. We also have a virtual option as well. So you can just go to annamorgancareerbff.com or yourcareerbff.com. New website, my bad.
Oh, okay.
Um, but what's even better is there is a virtual social happening next Wednesday
Ooh,
for everyone where they can come and learn more about Evolve, talk to past speakers, past sponsors, past attendees, and have a conversation about the world of work, how we're evolving. If you attend, you're going to get the first look at who will be speaking at the event. So, I'm not going to be putting that out there publicly right away. So, you'll get the inside scoop there, and that's posted on LinkedIn. So, that would be an amazing place to come and learn more about how we're evolving in 2026.
fantastic. And on my side,
Yeah.
of course, I'm at employerbrandlabs.com. I have a couple of quizzes. If you want to go to talentstrategy.app and see how well you're benchmarking your recruiting, or if you go to talentstrategy.app/employer brand, you can see maybe where the gaps with your employer brand might be. They're all free quizzes. They take about 2 minutes to do, and you can see how well you're performing relative to a larger market. All right,
There you
Anna,
go.
thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you rescheduling and being so incredibly flexible and helpful with that. So,
Well,
uh,
likewise to you. Thank you.
oh, of course, of course, of course. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. The next week we have Mike Pedito, and we are actually actively arguing over what he's going to talk about as we speak. Thank you, LinkedIn. Thank you, Digital, for allowing me to do two things at once. While Anna's talking, I can go ahead and schedule the next thing, because that's event management, there, friends. That's a tip.
There
All
you
right.
go.
Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks Anna for being here. And we will see you all next week. Bye.
Sounds good. Thanks, James.